welcome for our webinar for tonight. Tonight, inshallah, is going to be such a special night with a very, very important topic or theme that we will be talking about, inshallah, and exploring even further and more and in depth. Before we dig in, let me start by introducing myself. My name is Reem Al-Jizawi. I am one of the brilliant co-reachers. I'm actually also the founder of CoReach, and CoReach is basically the first firm and a platform in Saudi Arabia for coaching and for consultancy. We are an organization that serves both individuals and businesses in answering their needs when it comes to the human element and how to introduce that healthy workplaces and healthy work environments. We are a holacratic company that works with holacracy according to a holacracy management system as a teal organization as well. And what we're doing is part of an initiative that we do on a yearly basis called the Charity of Knowledge, or Zakat Ilm. And we do that on a yearly basis during Ramadan. This year, it is absolutely special because we are doing it not only with amazing world-known speakers, but also we are doing it with a very important theme, which is humanity. And specifically today, we are digging into more and more resilience. And I would like to introduce our brilliant speaker for today, Linda. Linda Berlot is the CRR Global Partner for the GCC, licensed to deliver the ORSCC model of coaching and CEO of Berlot Group. She's also Global Faculty and Leader Development Director at the CRR Global, responsible for developing all the international ORSCC course trainers. Welcome, Linda, with us tonight. We are extremely happy and looking forward for your the knowledge that we will be receiving, inshallah, tonight with you. And just a few understanding that I want to just to mention. If anyone wants to ask any question, please do put it in the Q&A. We will be looking at these questions on a regular basis. Also, we are so much welcoming all of your comments and interaction and engagement through the chat box. And there will be times where you can unmute yourself and share your thoughts with us as well. And you will know when. So Linda, thank you so much. The floor is all yours.
Reem, thank you very much. Hello, everybody. It's an absolute honor for me to be here with you. I look forward to spending the next 90 minutes or so with you, and for us, creating a conversation together. So I have some things to share with you, but I'm more than happy to hear from you. And I love these forums that we can learn together. I normally see everybody's faces, but I understand that's not possible. But I do want to hear your voices. So every now and again, I'm going to pause and ask you if you have any questions, if you have any thoughts or ideas. Please, I just want to underline what Reem just said. Unmute yourselves and please feel free to ask us questions. If you don't want to speak out, that's okay. Feel free to put it in the chat and we will read your questions. And we will read your questions out and hopefully answer all your questions. I am absolutely thrilled to be here tonight to talk about a topic that's very close to my heart, which is change management. But in this, for this webinar, it's talking about the response styles to change, change initiative, and particularly now in times of pandemic. Could I ask that you mute yourselves because of the background noise until you have ask? So thank you very much. So if we are mute, then we can hear each other. And then when you want to speak up, please feel free to unmute yourselves and remember to mute yourselves again. So I see some very familiar faces. I'm thrilled to be here. I'm just going to go for it. So I'm going to share my screen with you. So I wanted to say thank you, first of all, to Reem and her wonderful team and CoReach for inviting us here to speak. I think it's a wonderful idea to invite people to speak and give of their time and of their knowledge so that we can enrich each other as a community. I think there was so much alignment between Reem, CoReach, and the Berlot group because we are all very committed to sharing freely and developing each other. So thank you for inviting me here. Like Reem said, I'm the CEO at Berlot Group, and we do two things. One of the things that we do is we run a coach training school, so we're licensed to deliver the ORSCC courses here in the GCC, but we also are a team coaching organization, so we go inside to organizations. We coach leadership teams, like C-suite leadership teams, usually when they have issues such as conflict, misalignment, sometimes multicultural issues, and most of the time it's around change. Either the organization wants to change, or the team needs to change, or the individuals themselves want to change. So we work at all three of those levels with change, which is why it's a topic so close to my heart. Now, there are different types of changes, right? There are changes that choose us and changes that we choose. Now, which ones are the harder ones to deal with? The changes that choose us, right? The ones that we don't choose. For example, like COVID-19. I live here in the UAE and we've been on absolute lockdown this week. We were allowed open, but I believe, you know, every country in the world has faced very similar situations. And when we are in things like a pandemic and lockdown, it kicks up many emotions such as fear, anxiety, stress. Whenever something threatens our safety and security, these are some of the emotions that come up. And so it's important for us to know why these emotions are popping up. And hopefully today we'll talk about how to support that when they do pop up in us. So what's the objective of this call? This call is, well, if you are a coach or if you are a leader, you're going to be called to be working with teams or individuals, and change is just part of life. And so it's really important as a coach to know how to deal with that, but also it's a leadership skill to know how to manage the people in my team or the people that I'm leading through change. So today, I'd love to give you some knowledge, something to think about when you're working with change. And also help you think about how to take a systemic approach to leading change, which might be a little different to you unless you've been an ORSCC. And so I wanted to share that with you. It looks at change from a holistic point of view. So yes, we look at the individuals in the team, but we look also at the team. It's almost like we take a helicopter view of the team when change is happening, or in our family, for example, when changes are happening, and then we know how to support people. So I'm going to pause the sharing there for a moment. I saw quite a lot of chats coming through. Are there any questions?
So far, there are no questions. They're all greetings, and they are excited for today's talk. And yeah.
Okay. So Reem, I'm not going to look at the chat. I'm just going to totally lean on you in that.
All right.
Okay. So I will pause several times. However, if you feel that there's a question that's really pertinent, please feel free to stop me. I don't want people to feel like we're not listening to them or not building on the questions that they have.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We'll take care of that.
So ask yourselves this question. To what degree are you experiencing change in your world? That should be change. Are you experiencing it a lot, somewhat, or a little? And I want you to write it in the chat. To what degree are you experiencing change in your world? A lot, somewhat, or a little? A lot, a lot.
So we have a lot. So far it's a lot, somewhat.
Somewhat.
A lot, somewhat. Both. Okay,
Yeah.
somewhat.
I love that you say both, because it is like a pendulum, right? If you think about the change curve, it's not a continuum. We keep swinging backwards and forwards. Fantastic. Thank you for contributing. So how prepared do you feel to deal with the changes that you're going through? A lot, somewhat, or a little? And if you could answer in the chat, please.
Somewhat. Still somewhat. Both.
A lot.
A little. A lot.
Yeah.
Somewhat. A lot, somewhat.
Good. So then let's go, ORSCC. Thank you very much. Oh, I am absolutely loving how much you're contributing. It makes it so much harder when the participants don't contribute. So thank you. Fantastic. So then you've come to the right webinar, because you're going to learn maybe a tool or a skill on how to deal with some of the emotions that you might be facing, and also to help those people around you. So before we started, I wanted to give you some statistics, because those are always interesting. I know that many people like to know some of that. So this was the data that came from a poll that IBM ran, and they polled over 1,400 CEOs and change agents, and these were some of the results. Everybody agreed change is the new normal. You know, we can't, two things are sure in our life: change and death. Hopefully we get to live many changes before we die, but change is here to stay. It's infinite and it's ongoing. 8 out of 10 managers anticipated a lot of change in their workplace over the next 3 years, but only 20% felt successful in managing the change. They understood that collaboration was the key, but they found that many of their employees or the team members they were working with were ready to collaborate in times of stress and change. Well, there's a reason for that. And 58% said changing mindsets was the most challenging aspect of change. Absolutely, because what we think determines how we feel, how we behave, right? So in order to change the way we behave, we need to change the way we think. 49% said that change in the culture was the most challenging aspect of change, because culture is really the way that we behave and the way that we treat each other. So some other stats, what we found is that in order to make change successful, the top 4 factors were that you need an endorsement from the highest levels. So whether it's in a change in an organization or a pandemic, we need to keep receiving information, and we need to keep hearing reassurance from whoever's leading the change or leading you know, the leadership that is around you. Is that correct English? I'm not sure. But the more information that we receive, the more leadership we receive, the calmer we start to feel, because we feel like there's some sort of control. If people keep telling us the vision, like, you know, it will be okay, a pandemic is here, it will pass, you can do this, then everybody starts to calm down. We like to have some involvement in how the change will impact us. Some of the things that are most hard to deal with is, for example, a pandemic happens, all of a sudden, maybe some people don't have pay, maybe some people don't have jobs, and all of a sudden, there was no conversation about it. But the people who were management or leaders sat down with their employees and said, look, this is the worst case scenario. How do we resolve this together? You know, shall we go for first, for example, working paid leave, unpaid leave, and then 60% salary, those employees that were engaged in the conversation felt more empowered in their lives in general and were calmer. We like when there's information shared with us, which is truthful. Sometimes that's hard for leadership because they feel if we don't have information, then we've got nothing to share. But in the absence of information, what happens to us? We don't think, something brilliant's going to happen because we're human. We automatically create the worst case scenario. So continuous information is really important. One of the things that I've really appreciated here in the UAE, every day they have to share the statistics, but every day they've given us, number of cases infected, number of cases died, but most importantly, in big, bold colors, number of people who have gotten better. And without really intentionally, or maybe they were intentional, they are reaffirming that people are getting better, even though the situation is pretty scary for everybody. So I'm sure that when you read some of these things, it's already kicking up some questions in you. I would like to just move on a little further so that I can introduce you to a model of change that I want to share with you. So in ORSCC, because this material comes from the ORSCC material, which is trademarked CRR Global, in ORSCC we believe that when there is a primary identity or who we are now, or the state which we know, for example, pre-COVID, what would that have been? What would have been our primary identity? Let me show me in the chat box. So our primary identity or the state that we know, our primary identity would have been driving our cars, going to the shops, going to work every day. That was the identity which we know. Taxi. Okay, yes. So
users and someone who is glued to work.
Yes. Yeah, so that could have been someone's reality, absolutely. Somebody who's courageous, so somebody who is a workaholic, somebody also who exercises a lot, for example. That was a reality which was known. So even we liked it, we didn't, but it was known. The moment we think about an identity which is not known, that which we are not, the future, that becomes our secondary. So if you think of change, the primary identity over here is the state or our current reality. Change would be the secondary. That's the thing that wants to happen. Now, if we know that the secondary is coming, we are better prepared to manage our emotions. But if we don't know, like the pandemic, we get thrown over the edge, and this causes lots of edge behavior. Edge behavior can be shown such as fear, anxiety, panic, being afraid. In a course room, for example, when I'm delivering one of my courses and I ask my students or my participants to go and do an exercise. Now, all of a sudden, everybody's embarrassed. So primary was we were all seated talking. Secondary, go and do the exercise. So when they get told that, they have to cross an edge. Sometimes edge behavior pops up. And edge behavior can be laughing, lots of questions, coughing, shuffling around, going to the bathroom, until everybody settles down into their secondary. I want to just pause there and ask you, are there any questions? How's that concept landing?
Well, we have one question from Sarah, and she's saying, what about the feelings or doubts that are not your own, but we observe from the environment?
maybe could you put more questions around that so I know what to link it to? Are you asking if that is stressful on us? Secondhand stress.
Hello?
Hi.
Hi, yeah, that was my question. I'm just going to add to it. And I had put up that question when you were introducing the concept of change and, you know, how prepared we are. So that was the question I'd asked. Like sometimes we might think we are prepared, and we might be more willing to accept the changes, however harsh or difficult they might be. But sometimes you are in an environment where there's this pressure, or there is this huge fear of change because the others around you are not ready. So how does one, you know, deal with that? Because you might just absorb, and I really do believe that we kind of absorb that, and we are symbiotic in nature as humans.
That's absolutely
so
true.
that was my that was the context of that question.
Absolutely, that's very true. So in any change initiative, so let's go back to, I'll share my screen. In any change initiative, we all have to go over that edge. Some of us cross very easily, right? Some of us quickly get our heads around, and then all of a sudden we're okay, and we keep moving. Others don't like to cross at all. So they are the last people to cross. And some people, most actually, sit and wait and see what happens. So if we take, for example, the pandemic, right? I don't know how it was in your countries, wherever you are all dialing in from, but I know here in the UAE, for example, you had some people who were in lockdown even before the lockdown, right? They crossed that edge. They were right over that edge. The first whiff of a virus, and we had to clean our hands in the house. Nobody was leaving. So we have those people. Then we had the people who were cautious and saying, let's see what happens. Let me see what everybody's doing. Let's hear what the government says. Let's see what the newspaper says. You know, so they were waiting to see and crossed maybe a little bit later. Then you had those people who are saying, this is just a flu. Nothing's going to happen. Nothing's going to change me from going outside. I'm still going. I'm on the beach. I'm running. I'm playing. I'm eating. All of these things, right? So they crossed last. These are response styles to change, which are very normal. In any change initiative, depending on how we are impacted by the change, and depending on our personality, we either cross the edge quickly or we take a long time. And sometimes we zigzag over the edge, right? I remember towards the end of February, beginning of March, I started to feel really tired. I would be typing at my laptop. We were in the office, but we were talking about this pandemic all the time, on all the social media, the news, the newspapers, on WhatsApp, everybody's sending each other messages. And I started to notice that I would fall asleep at my keyboard during the day. And I felt like I needed to take cat naps in the day. I'm not a cat nap person. And then a week later, I realized, wow, that was the impact of stress. So my head felt foggy. I couldn't think. I was just only thinking about the pandemic. I realized how it had impacted me. And those are very normal emotions, you know, when you're going over your edge. So let's see if there are any questions about what I've just said. The fact that there are different response styles and different people cross the edges at different times. Any questions?
Okay.
Me, I'm typing.
Yes, go ahead. Do you have any questions?
1 second, I'm finishing typing, please. Cover Russ.
You can go ahead and say your question.
Okay, hi Linda. That's it, send it. So basically what I was typing and trying to see that the edge is a transition where all people are crossing in the organization, no? Okay, and sometimes so people start before and the other ones, but how we connect this transition with, for example, with the Kubler-Ross phases of the healing process, no? After dual. So this is a connection between this process that we live in the edge. Is the same process that we leave in this behind, starting and you start like the entering, the middle one, and the new beginning.
Yes, yes. I think you're talking about a myth change, like a change from one way of being to another. Yes, absolutely. So when we cross from one way of being, so for example, before COVID, the primary was free life outside. And the secondary was being locked up at home, not working, everybody just locked in their own houses, not going out. That was secondary. Now, if we had thought about that secondary, we would have thought, never. And yet, all of a sudden, lockdown, and we were all thrown into our secondary. So sometimes that causes a lot of emotions in us. When a change is not asked for, or when we don't go and look for the change and we just get thrown over that edge, it causes many emotions to come up because we've left behind that which is our comfort zone. We are creatures of habit. We like our comfort zone. We don't like to leave our comfort zone. If we go too much past our comfort zone, we hit a fear zone. I mean, if we work through that, of course, then there's learning and growth that comes from that. But initially, there's a fear zone that comes from crossing that edge too quickly.
Okay, exactly. So that was to start the confusion and then go. Thank you.
Did I answer your question?
Yes, because I was looking the parallelism and the emotion point when they start the edge and with the confusion is the fear, because I don't know what I'm going to do. It's like a fog around me. Yeah. So I need to walk without knowing where I'm going, without understanding where I'm going. But I need to know, I need to trust myself that I'm taking the good decisions or making good decisions in order to go through the storm and get to the secondary where I decide who I am or how I want to live, because we don't know yet.
Yes, exactly. So actually hanging around on the edge could be all the not knowing, I'm not sure what my secondary is, and all of that causes those edge behaviors. Once we're in the secondary, so I mean, how many of you feel actually quite comfortable now in lockdown? We figured it out, we can do this, right? We don't like it, but we can do it. And so it will be interesting to see when lockdown is opened, how we cross the secondary again into the primary. But one of the things, I wanted to respond to something that you said. It will come back to me.
It's okay, thank you.
You said something about, it will come back to me. I'll respond to it in
anytime. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you.
And Linda, we have another 2 questions. One is saying, I feel people judge the different responses we each have to what happened. My question is how to deal with that.
Yeah, that's exactly where we're going. That is such an important question to ask, because it's true. And I'm sure as coaches, you know this, right? The ability to self-manage, but we like that which is most like ourselves. We judge that which is different as wrong. And so it's important to know that different people cross the edge in different ways and at different times. And I can't judge anybody for crossing, you know, at the pace that they do, because it's an emotional thing. If you think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, I'm sure you all know that model. The base bottom needs are the need for food, water, shelter, and security. When our safety and security is threatened, it's impossible for us to think clearly about work or anything else, because we need to take care of our basic needs. That is just plain human behavior. And so different people will feel the fear in different ways. So let's go there. Is there another question before I go there?
Yes, there's one more question. can you change the way you cross the edge if for example, from third wave to second wave?
Hold that thought. I'm going there exactly then. So ask me the question again at the end if you have not got your answer. Let me share my screen and let me share some other information with you. Okay, so we're all clear, I think, about primary, secondary, crossing the edge, and the emotional. Remember that any change is an emotional journey. There are certain emotions that we've got to work through in order to get to the other side. Things like denial, this is not happening, resistance, anger, the need to vent, fear, anxiety, but then finding some good, having feelings of success. Maybe this change is good. All of a sudden I have peace and quiet. I can do my work. And then commitment. So there are emotions that are associated with any change. But let's look at these people and how different they are. And I'm going to surprise you because I'm going to say to you, we have all of those inside us. But let's go to the next slide. So first wave are what we call the leapers. They just jump into the change. It does not mean that they don't go through the same emotional journey. It just means that they go through it quicker, right? Because they just have that about them. Then you've got bridge builders. These are the guys that really, they're like wait and see. Let me have more information. Let me see what the government says. Let me see what my friends are doing. You know, I'm not sure. I'm not crossing my secondary. I'm just going to hang out here and see how this is going. And then you've got the real tradition holders who value, they really hold the banner for the way that we are right now and the way that was the past. I'm not moving. There's no use. It's going to pass. So there's all this kind of why change? You know, I don't believe it's coming. Those are the tradition holders. Now, you'll be surprised to hear that all three are needed in any change initiative. And you'll also be surprised to hear that you can be a leaper in one part of your life and a tradition holder in another part of your life. It just depends on personality. And all three styles are necessary, and we can talk why about that. So if you think about a leaper, these are the little green ones. These are the ones that cross early. What do you think are the leaper's strengths? Like, what are the strengths? What do they bring to a team or a family or a system when they cross the change quickly? What are some of the strengths that they bring to a team? Resilience, quick action, yes.
Courage,
yeah.
Protective, being brave, hope and strength, quick analysis skills, anticipation, cautious.
Absolutely. So these guys are the ones that just fearless. They cross. Once they get their bearings back, they keep going on the chart. We can do this, you know. Resilience, yes. Now, leapers are not so cautious. Leapers love the challenge and the change. Now, what are the challenges with a leaper mindset to a team or even to themselves? What could be some of the challenges?
Maybe the lack of teamwork, because you might, as a leaper, you know, you might be jumping ahead or you might be moving ahead too fast, leaving others behind.
That's right. They can move fast. They leave people behind. They may not be team players. They like risks, so take risks. Sometimes they could be reckless and too fast. Absolutely.
And I think there would, for everyone else, there might even sense a lack of empathy from a leaper within a team.
Yes, because when the leaper has already crossed their edge and they're looking back, they can get impatient with everybody else who's maybe a bridge builder or tradition holder who are not crossing so quickly. Yes. Yes. So, okay, perfect. You guys have got it. What about bridge builders? What are some of the strengths that a bridge builder brings to the team or the family or even to themselves?
Someone who would be, a person with foresight, careful planner,
Analytical thinker.
analytical. Yes, exactly. And I'm sorry.
There's also security.
Yes.
And motivation.
Planning, that's it. They also are the ones that maintain the balance in the team, right? They've got this pull between the leapers and the tradition holders. The bridge builders maintain the balance. They take time, yes. So what are some of the challenges about being a bridge builder?
Carrying most of the load. You're carrying the burden of the plan and the people around.
Yes, they take too long sometimes. They are unsure. They try and get everything in order, and change is chaos. So they lack quick thinking. They might support the team. Boring. Only for a leaper. Yeah. Now, I just want to safeguard you that all styles are necessary, and we have all styles. I'm going to show you that in a moment. Now, what about tradition holders? These are the guys that really maintain the banner for the way we've done things, the values. They make sure we don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Are you familiar with that expression? So what are the strengths of a tradition holder? Strengths.
It's like the history, the experience, the knowledge that we were good and why we need to change if we're doing the things properly and we're doing fine.
Right, exactly. So they are the real custodians of the values of the organization, you know, where we came from, the history, exactly. What are the challenges with a tradition holder?
Accept new points of view.
Yes.
Flexibility, openness, and embracing the different diversity.
Yeah. They don't accept the change. They are not so flexible. Yes.
I think it goes both ways. A traditional holder will, of course, they will have a hard time letting go of certain values. At the same time, they will also have a hard time convincing others to hold on to what they think are important values. So, I mean, because of their lack of flexibility, they will not be able to convince others, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. So if they don't move, sometimes the change cannot happen. You know, if a tradition holder holds on too tightly, yes, because they're so fixed, the change won't happen. But here's the thing. All of us we have the ability to be all of these things in our lives. And I would like for us to just talk about that for a moment. Where am I? Here. Okay, so we're going to find out now who's a leaper in which area. Now, first area. Think about food. Are you the type of person that loves to go to new restaurants, will try any new food, it doesn't matter what? Or do you go to the same restaurant and order the same thing from the menu and eat the things that you know? Or you don't like to go out. You just eat one thing all the time. It doesn't matter what country you go to, always the same thing. Which one are you? Are you a food leaper, a food bridge builder, or a food tradition holder?
Food leaper, bridge leaper, love trying out things.
Bridge builder.
Yeah, in between.
Both.
Yeah. Now, I like to think of myself as a leaper in all things, but the truth is I don't eat meat. So by that, I think I'm a tradition holder. I like to say that I'll experiment anything, but I don't eat meat ever. So maybe I'm a tradition holder in food. Okay. Thank you for sharing. Think about travel. Do you love going to exotic places, places nobody's ever heard about? You don't care if it's safe or not. You just love to explore different places. Or do you like to go to the same, do you like to go to places which are safe? You know, everybody knows. Maybe you go to the same chain of hotels no matter what country you go to. Or do you not like traveling at all? Which one are you? Leaper?
You have a lot of leaper here.
In the travel, okay. So in the food, you might have been a tradition holder, and in the travel, you're a leaper.
Yeah, there's a bridge builder.
Yeah.
Some are saying between this and that.
Yeah. My backpack is always packed. It doesn't take me much at all. One of the hardest things about COVID is the fact that I'm not traveling. This for me is like suffocating. I can live alone. I don't mind that at all. I can stay in my house. This I'm comfortable with. But your bag is in your car. I can relate. Okay, let's look at the third one. Oh, where am I? Here, technology. Do you always have the latest telephone? No matter what, you just change with the times? Or do you keep your trusty phone? Or do you not change it at all? Or do you wait and see what everybody's trying? So the new iPhone 7 or the new Samsung comes out, but you just wait and see what everybody else's experience is before you buy it. Which one are you?
We have a super leaper so far, and leaper and bridge builder. Okay, bridge builder, and yeah. I'm saying I think all three still go to my first PS1 up and running.
Okay, a mix of all, yes. I am a tradition holder. Honestly, I still have my BlackBerry. I bought an iPhone, but I still have my trusty BlackBerry. And whenever I pull it out, everybody thinks I'm coming from another century. Keep my old phone until it stops working. I can relate. Don't laugh at me, it's true. Tradition holder. Actually, one of the things that the pandemic has done has made me cross my technology edge, because now it's all on Zoom, right? So all the courses are Zoom and Jamboard and all of this. And now all of a sudden I'm teaching everybody how to use those things. So you see, you can stretch. Yes, my BlackBerry still works. Okay, so do you see how all of us can have different response styles in us? Now think about the pandemic. Which one were you? Were you locked in your house at the first sniff of a virus and you were not moving, so you were a leaper? Did you wait and see, try and see what everybody else would say? What would the government say? Let's just wait a little bit. Let's not be dramatic. Let's just wait. There you are, a bridge builder. If you were the last to lock yourselves in the house, you thought it was just a flu virus, it's going to pass, it's never going to come, you're a tradition holder. This time I'm a leaper. There's no shame. Leapers, yeah, bridge builders, yeah. So you can see that we hold all of these inside us, and it just depends on the amount of change, how we perceive the change, and how much we're impacted by the change. They had to announce the 24-hour lockdown to get me inside. Real tradition holder. Okay. So thank you for your honesty. So does that answer some of your questions? I think there was a question before about how to manage this. We will come to how to manage it in a moment. Any questions?
Yes, that would be, there's a question from Nov. And Nov is asking, I am dealing with kids, teens, adults in my house, and I was very strong at the first 25 days of the quarantine, but then I started to collapse. How can I continue? By the way, the isolation suits me very much, but not the others, with a sad face. I am the mother. I have my husband, 2 kids, 2 preteens, 2 teens.
Wow. Yeah, that's a lot to handle. So I think your mothering instincts kicked in, so you crossed over that edge quickly, because I can hear it. I can hear it in your message. You are wanting to take care of your family. And then when there's so much adrenaline, so many emotions, even though they're in the subconscious or in the background, that is over a period of time, that's exhausting. Now, these emotions, when we go across our edge, it's not always a smooth transition. We sometimes zigzag over. So I'm okay, I cross over, I'm okay, and then something happens, I'm exhausted, I don't sleep, and we cross over again. So we have to hang out, vent. Sometimes we need to sleep, we need to talk to people, talk to friends, sometimes even talk to a doctor, and then maybe we cross over. So it's really zigzagging over the edge that will eventually keep us moving into the secondary. Everybody changes at different rates. I have in my team, I was the first one down. When my team were all still fussing about, I was the first one down. My head was foggy, I couldn't think, sleeping, and then I got over it quickly, but still very triggered. My heart was pounding, I can feel the adrenaline racing inside me. And then I started to notice, like, some of my team are not sleeping, some of them are getting sick. In 1 week, another week they might be better, and then the week after that again, we go backwards and forwards like this. It's really normal. It's normal in any change initiative, and even more normal now. The way to manage it is just to take one day at a time and just be present to this moment. I don't know if you're familiar with the term future tripping. So as humans, we do this. So we've got lockdown. I'm unsure about my work. Oh my goodness, what happens if I don't have a job? What happens if I don't get a salary? What happens if I lose my apartment? So we make up the future, but we are only living in today, and the future has not come yet. And that creates more anxiety. If we have the ability to stay present in today and trust, first of all, deal only with the facts at hand. So challenge your thinking and ask yourself questions which bring you to evidence. So evidence-based questions. So is what I'm thinking correct, right? The future trip. Is the story I'm making up correct? What evidence do I have to prove this? But also, what I have found in my experience is when we're going through all these emotions, control is an illusion, but control makes us feel safe. So I think that if I have a job, if I have a house, if I have this and if I that, I'm safe. And that's not really true, because anything can happen at any minute. But part of being resilient is trusting that we are infinitely creative and resourceful and intelligent, and we can create solutions from disturbance. We can create solutions and take care of ourselves. So I learned a long time ago that in the most chaotic moments, at the moments where I felt least in control, my job was to surrender. And surrender isn't giving up. Surrender is about trust. Trust in myself that I'm infinitely creative and resourceful, and I will come up with the solutions. But also trust that I am being held. I don't know if you believe in God or something bigger than you. Trust that we are always held. And the analogy that comes to me is like a river. You know, you're in a river, and the river takes you down the river, so you are held. But then there's a moment where there's rapids, and you have to swim, 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 swim. But even in the rapid, there's a moment that if you swim too hard, you will drown. So you have to lay on your back and allow the river to take you down. And that's for me exactly what life is. This is these moments where we need to surrender. And surrender is surrender control, but trust. Trust in me, trust that I am held. Those are my personal beliefs, by the way. I'm not suggesting anybody should have the same beliefs. I'm glad you like the analogy.
Beautifully said. Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. That's very insightful, Linda. Thank you. There's another question that says, most of my answers are both bridge builder and the traditional holder. What does that say about me?
It says that you're normal. We all have different ones. It doesn't mean that you will never have a leaper or you're not a leaper in some aspects of your life. It just means that that's your preference. There's no good or bad. All of these are needed in an initiative. Imagine if we were all leapers. We would jump off the cliff. You know that, like those little animals, everybody's leaping. There's no one to say, hey, wait a minute, people. Have we looked out over that cliff to see how far it is? And have we really assessed, do we need to jump off the cliff? But the leapers have jumped, right? So we need all of the styles in a family, in our system. There is no one who is better than other. I guess we're not superheroes. Well, we might be. But even superheroes have got hearts and emotions, I think. And they've got a purpose, and they fight for that purpose. And that's actually really important when we're working with the team, is to just connect them around their higher purpose. Keep talking about how you feel. Because when we're in survival mode, very often it's hard to see the future, but we can see what's here right now. And we can ask ourselves, who do we want to be in this moment? I agree, everyone is a superhero in their own way. We all have the ability. And you know what our superpowers are? Kindness, compassion, and empathy in this moment. Those people who can do those three are superheroes, because the world at the moment and the people around us and we need kindness, compassion, and empathy. So shall we carry on with the presentation?
Sure, we have more questions, but we can keep them for later.
Go for it.
Okay. So Raja is asking, so if I am a leaper most of the time, then I have to control myself a bit? That's a question.
I would say maybe not in normal life around food or, technology, but maybe in certain areas. If you know that about yourself, you might occasionally ask yourself, if it's an important change, do I need more information around this change? Should I be a little bit more careful, or can I leap? So just cross-reference with yourself. So for example, moving to another country might be exciting, but do you have enough information about the other country before you pack your bag? I came to Dubai that way, by the way. I was living in Hong Kong and I was offered a job, and everybody said to me, Linda, go and visit it first. I'm like, no worries. I'll like it, I'm sure. And I packed my bag and left. And I've been here 15 years.
Oh, wow.
So that's Lipa. Do you talk about how to find joy or live with joy? I think that is part of being present to the moment. And so there's a principle called the principle of emergence. And the principle of emergence says that with every disruption, there's an opportunity for something new wanting to happen, something new wanting to emerge, a different way of being or something like that. So if we look at change as a disruption and change as a signal for something different wanting to happen, we can then start to look at what is that change and what's here right now that could be good from how it used to be yesterday. When you start to look for those places, I think you can find joy, even in the most chaotic of states. Joy is a decision. It's not an end state. We can choose to be happy, choose to be joyful, and therefore choose to create it. Grit. I love that word. Grit is what we should follow. Yeah. Okay. I am absolutely loving the conversation and the participation here between us. Thank you for that. So let's talk about amongst ourselves. What is the best way for us? How do we make the best out of each response style? How do we get the best out of them? So out of a leaper, how do we make sure that we've got the best out of a leaper and we harness their energy and enthusiasm? How do we do that?
And for example, the leapers are people who like to go fast, to lead, to open the gate, to go in front. So it's like, go, see, come, and help us to
Exactly.
go to pick up the one bridge and build a bridge from the traditional guys.
Exactly.
So it's like a human change, changing and pulling each other.
Yes. Exactly. So we send them out on a fact-finding mission or on a pilot. Send the leapers to do the pilot. Then they bring the information and they give it to who?
To
The bridge builders.
Bridge builders, yes, because the bridge builders for sure are going to say, did you think about that? Did you think about that? Did you think about that? They have the critical eye and they see all the details and they are good at analysis. And then how do we get the best out of the tradition holders?
Challenging the new structure, looking for more depth, essential risk. When you go to the essence of the culture and the organization, for example, it's going to be that in that place.
Yes, yes, and make them the champions of our values. You make sure that we don't lose our purpose and our values. You are in charge to make sure that everything we do is in line with our values. So give them a job, make them the safekeepers of the values, the purpose, that which is important to them, because there's value for what they say. So, yes, exactly. Oh, hello, my kitty cat is here. Okay, so any questions about how to get the best out of the response styles?
We have a couple of questions. I'm sorry. We have a couple of questions here. When do you know for sure that this time or this moment is the time to be a leaper or bridge builder or traditional holder?
Well, that's a really good question. I think you have to be true to yourself. But if you know that you're a risk taker, then I would challenge your thinking. Like, is this a good time to take a risk? Like for me, very often, I'm a leaper in most things in my life, but I have learned, because I've really crashed and burned sometimes, I've learned to ask myself, or perhaps go to people that are tradition holders and ask them to challenge me, challenge my thinking. But then there are, how did we learn these response styles? It was, when in primitive days where humans had to eat or be eaten, run or be eaten. So these are the responses that come from here. Now, some of them are very instinctive. But if you know that you are one or the other, challenge your thinking. If you're a tradition holder, try and get used to changing your environment. Maybe go a different way to work every day, or try a different type of a food. Try and challenge yourself. In all cases, challenge your thinking.
Okay. And there's another question from Jackie. How we can choose it? How can we choose it?
How we can choose? If we are in a sphere, deep in the sphere, deep inside, what's going to be like tool? Intuition is a way to decide. It's an intuition is a way to move. How we can make to these people in order to teach them or help them to choose by themselves?
The different response styles?
Sorry?
You mean the people?
Yeah. For example, the traditional builders or the bridge builder, when you cross the edge and go back because you were like too harsh, and many people go to a sphere and they close up and try to feel safe and secure and protect themselves. So how we can help them in order to choose, to change, to break the sphere, move out and be, in the other side of the...
Yeah, sometimes when we are very afraid, when we get thrown over the edge, we go into like a protective bubble, and it's very difficult to get in because we have a certain belief, and everything we believe reinforces that belief. Everything we say reinforces that belief. It's very difficult to reach people like that, except to know that they are in this protective state and that the state will release. And all you can do is say, look, I noticed that you don't seem open to influence. No matter what I say, it's no but. So I can't reach you, but know that I'm here if you want to talk to me. And then just keep reaching out to them, and it will self-release.
Thank you.
Yeah, pleasure. So how can we be cautious about, of each of the styles? And then what support do each of the styles need? So let's go with one question at a time. So how can we be cautious about each style? What are the things we need to be aware of?
Each style, okay, for example, leapers are to they're not afraid at all, and they cannot measure risk.
Yes.
So, opportunity cost, because he didn't take the good make an analysis in order to act. He was running and jumping on the edge, on the side.
Yes, exactly. So for the leapers, it's important because they just cross over. So we want to challenge their thinking and make sure that they're not just crossing over every time just because they like change.
I have a question here. Now, we have seen that how a person can be a mix of all three depending on depending on the situation.
Yes.
So wouldn't the fact that you might be somewhere you're a traditionalist and somewhere you're a bridge builder, wouldn't that also, as a leaper, wouldn't that come into your subconscious to think, or to just before you leap? Because that is also part of your personality.
You would think. How many people are so self-aware? Sometimes, most of the time, we like to look at someone else and then we criticize or judge them, right? Oh, they're so slow to move. Why is he such a stick in the mud? But we don't see in ourselves that part. In fact, the very part that is in us that is not seen is the thing that triggers me most about the other person. You are absolutely correct, of course. Now that I know that I am all things, when I see it, I don't judge it so badly because I know that I have this, maybe just in a different situation. But so the way to help people with that is to just educate around this, educate that we all have it inside us. Especially when we are anxious and stressed, it's easier to go to judgment than it is to go to understanding and compassion. Initially, when we are afraid. So it's easy to think about yourselves. Think about, and I know certainly this was for me. So if you were a leaper in the pandemic and you went into lockdown, even before lockdown was announced, how did you feel about your friends who were still out and about? The person who said you had to put 24-hour quarantine before he went indoors. How did you feel? So did you judge them, or were you okay with everybody doing their thing? Irresponsible. Just a little judgment in the statement. See, that's normal. That's our human behavior. If we are, whichever one we are, we tend to judge the other. And now that we know that we are all of these things and we all respond differently to change, it's easier to remind ourselves to be more curious and compassionate.
Just have a, sorry. Sometimes, I mean, we think we are compassionate, right? We think it's something that's part of us. But in times like these, is it also a choice? You have to, instead of being being judgmental, is it a conscious choice that sometimes you have to make? Because this is something I'm personally dealing with, that the feeling comes and then I do question it, and I'm like, no, I need to be consciously more compassionate to this.
Yeah. Sometimes, yes, we do need to be conscious and intentional about who we want to be in that moment. I mean, it happens all the time, right? We were allowed out this week for the first time, and the supermarkets were jam-packed. My brain was already, what are they thinking? I mean, there's still a pandemic going on, and everybody's jam-packed in the supermarkets and other places. And yet, if you can catch yourself and just be curious, like, why does that trigger me so much? And then I know, well, because I'm afraid. And so if I'm curious about them, it's like, what hold them with curiosity rather than judgment. Curiosity is the antidote to judgment. No, Sarah, you are not the only one. Yeah. Okay. So now, questions for you. We did not talk about a change initiative in the beginning, but maybe make some notes now. If you think about the pandemic, right? Think about, and maybe you want to make some notes for yourself. What is your response to change in the pandemic? What is your response to change in the pandemic? Second question, how can what you've learned today be helpful? So take a moment and make some notes for yourself, and then we will talk about them. How can what you've learned here today be helpful? Given that you know that that's your response style. And then what can you do? What's one small action step that you can make to kind of help yourself in your style with regards to the pandemic? Okay, who would like to share?
You can just open your mic and go ahead and start sharing.
Okay, since nobody else is saying anything, I'll start. So, what was my initial response to the pandemic? I think because I had been reading the news, and I'd been observing what's happening around the world in terms of the trends and the changes. I was aware that this is happening. This might happen. So I was prepared for that. And I'm also somewhere in my mind, I'm prepared for what's to come. In terms of the economic situation that will arise eventually, that we are looking at, all those factors, losing my job, losing a livelihood, losing part of my mind even. So I was aware of that, and I was very calm, and I'm still quite calm. Because I think maybe because I have gone through other issues in life where I was not prepared, but it has helped me learn how to prepare for sort of a collapse or a disaster. So that training has helped me. But then there was this issue where I noticed everyone else panicking, and I actually had a moment of, am I living in a bubble and I'm not aware and I should panic with everyone else? But today's session has put me, has sort of helped me understand that no, what I'm doing, the way I'm thinking, it's good, it's fine. I'm living in the moment. I'm creating personal routines that I have not done in over 10 years because my entire life was revolved around work. I have started reading again, coming from someone who used to read like so many books a month. I haven't read anything. I'm reading again. I'm creating another part of my life to fall back on, because there is a very good chance I won't have a job, or my industry that I'm employed in might even collapse in the coming months.
Thank you for sharing that. That's beautiful. I like that you are comfortable in the space that you are, and that you're able to see, like, from disturbance, what is the opportunity or the gift in it for you.
Mm.
Thank you. Another question?
Yes, we have actually a question. How would you know if your response style in a certain situation is the right response?
Just remember that they are all right. All are needed in any situation. So whoever you are, whatever you are, don't hold judgment. Just be who you are, and also be open to influence. All of us, if we are too fixed in our style, it's an overdone strength, right? Then it becomes a challenge. So there is no right or wrong. Just be aware of who you are in the moment and what you need, and also be open to influence. If you want to leap and a lot of people are saying no, then perhaps explore the no rather than being blocked to that and then just jumping. People might be able to see the issue from different angles that you cannot. And that's true for all the styles.
We have Dalal here saying that I think I will do nothing but controlling my feeling, breathing, and try to find joy.
Breath is so important. Breath can stop panic attacks. Breath can help you sleep. Breath can keep you grounded and stop you from spinning out. So those breathing techniques are vital, and they are amazing. I'm an insomniac, and when I'm a little stressed, I forget about sleeping. But when I do my breathing techniques, it's the only thing that puts me to sleep. So I firmly support that. Yoga is good. Exercise is good. Mindfulness, yes. What other things can you do for yourself to help yourself in the situation? Communicating, yes. Yeah. Especially if you're an extrovert, you need to communicate and share and vent if you need to. Find social support. And I love that. Some days it's okay to know that if you don't achieve, it's okay. Some days you may need to just hide under the covers for a day. Absolutely. Yeah. Dancing, yes. This is what I also found. I found that in the beginning there was news everywhere, and then now what I do, I listen to the news in the morning. I have my day's work. In the evening I put on music, and it changes. It's like an attitude. It changes your attitude. Reaching out to others, helping other people is very important. Yes. Getting off social media, very important. We can be influenced. So the emotions around us can influence our emotions. Coloring, nice. And reflecting a lot. Yes, so there's so many gifts at the moment. So thank you very much for sharing that. If there are no more questions, that's
There's one.
Yes?
There's one more, actually, yes. How do you know if you are surrendering to the fact that everything has fallen apart from the idea of giving up and not trying enough?
falling is not weakness. It takes someone really strong to know today's the day I need to fall. And it takes strength from that place to then know when to stand up again. And so many of us believe that if I am strong, I will not fall. That's not strength. That's actually not really listening to your body. And that's not strength. Sometimes it's okay to fall. We need to fall. We can't be strong all the time. We are human. And it's okay to feel fear. And it's okay to be afraid. It's okay to lie in bed all day, one day. And then the moment is, okay, when do I know again that now it's my time to stand up again and fight? And I can't give you that answer. I can just say that it's not weakness to fall, in my experience. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. That was a very beautiful and profound answer. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. I think some of these things, we learn them, right? As we experience things like this, we learn them along the way.
Yes. And I can see, Jackie, you have your hands up if you like to say something.
No. It was I forgot to lower that. Sorry.
Okay. Okay. No worries.
Sorry.
No worries.
Happy. I'm here. I'm happy.
Yeah.
Thank you all. You've been an amazing audience. Thank you. I feel like you've given me your hearts and we've shared a wonderful moment. Thank you.
And we have one more actually question. Ah, two more. Okay. So, all right. So we have, how can you help someone to get back up if they were down for a long time?
The first thing that comes to my mind is being aware if somebody needs professional help. So let's assume they don't need professional help, because if they do, we need to, even as coaches, know where our competence begins and ends, and then refer people to the right medical professional that they may need if you feel that you can't help them. But sometimes it's about, well, it depends what they need in that moment. Do they need to talk? Do they need, can they not see the future? Very often people in a resistance stage can't see the benefit of what's here and they cannot see the future. So helping them see the future is a very helpful technique. And as coaches, this is when coaches can really come in, because with coaching, we don't give the answers, as you all know, right? We help people find the answers for themselves, but we ask powerful questions. When we ask powerful questions, we help our clients, our friends reflect and then help them out in that way. I think that's the best. We have the best gift in our hands, and those are our coaching skills. So using coaching skills, using listening techniques, powerful questions, the ability that we have to create trust. These are all skills which are very valuable at this moment. Someone said yes.
Thank you. So we have two more, we have a couple of questions more before we move to that. You're gonna find a poll now that will show very short questions. If you can help us, please answer these questions, and we will go to the last two questions of the day. Okay. So there was a question that was asked at the beginning, and Linda, you said you will refer to it by the end, which is, can you change the way you cross the edge? If for example, from third wave to second wave.
Sure. When I'll kind of shift the angle a little bit. As coaches, we learn that there are many different ways to help our clients cross the edge. So we could help our clients cross at the smallest edge. So in that way, experience what the change is like a little bit and then come home. For example, if I'm thinking about moving to Australia, maybe I won't move there immediately. I might go on holiday and come back. So cross at the smallest edge. Maybe the coach can cross and report back. So I go to Australia and then I call my clients and I show them the pictures and I tell them how beautiful it is. So in terms of the pandemic, I can start talking about all of the things that I'm finding really, that I'm enjoying about the lockdown. Another way to cross the edge is to have them imagine themselves over the edge. So imagine if, what would happen if, you know, sometimes a client needs to be kissed over the edge gently or championed. I know you can do it. And you know, I know you're stronger than this. I know that you're resilient. I know you can stand up. I know you're going to succeed at this time. And sometimes they need to be kicked over the edge. You need to know your client though, in order to know which one will work with them. Sometimes you can prohibit them from crossing the edge. So you're right, you don't have to be here. You're right, lockdown is terrible. And you find that when we do that, very often they say yes, 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 and then they start to fight against us. But no, but actually I quite like lockdown. I quite like, you know, the fact that I can read. So those are just some techniques to help people cross the edge. And we can do that for ourselves too.
Okay, great. And the last one is, I'm a person who never accepted change and a workaholic with a daily to-do list. Never cried over my own emotions because I felt there is no time for it. It took me 20 days to process and I started having panic attacks, crying almost every night, and proceeds that things are out of my control. I have no to-do list, no accomplishments.
Is there a question?
I guess not. It's just a sharing from Jenna.
Thank you for sharing that. I know that that must have been quite hard for you to do and quite a hard situation to find yourself. If we are so used to doing and achieving and accomplishing, and our identity is grounded in that. So when I think about who am I think about myself as an achiever, a doer, an accomplisher. When I'm not doing those things, it really threatens our being. Very often, people who are overachievers are used to controlling their environment. And when they find out that there is no control, that we have no control, control is an illusion, this can be quite a scary place. If I were you, I'd sit with your fear and explore what's in the fear. What is it that you fear most? And then ask yourself, if that's true, if your fear, what is the worst thing that can happen? I mean, other than death, but what's the worst thing that can happen? Can you challenge those thoughts? And how much do you trust yourself to know that you can create out of this space? Think about that. Sometimes the people who are the most in control is because there's little trust either in the world around me or in myself. And this might be just a lesson to learn how infinitely resourceful you really are, how creative and intelligent you really naturally are. It's hard to say because I'm not looking at you and I don't know you. I'm just from the statement that you've made. See if there's anything there that resonates.
Thank you so much, Linda.
My pleasure.
And Is there any other questions that are burning questions that anyone would like to ask? You can just open your mic and go ahead and ask. All right. I don't want Linda to go. Okay.
Someone said, "This is Sparta." To be honest, I sometimes feel like that. But on a good day, I feel like I'm the master and commander of my own ship, and there's a storm coming, and I'm hanging off, and it's like, yeah, everybody ahead. And then there are other days where I'm down and under the covers because I'm too afraid. We go through these.
Yes, we all go through these days, and it's part of who we are. Yeah. Thank you so much, Linda. It was such an insightful, a truly insightful night and a webinar. We have enjoyed it. The questions, the engagement of everyone was just beautiful and amazing. And we just sincerely want to thank you. And we're grateful for all the knowledge that you have shared with us tonight. And thank you everyone for attending. It just makes this possible by your attending and by being engaged and by this drive to learn and to keep growing. So let's all keep growing. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, Reem. You're an inspirational woman, honestly, and what you've accomplished and what you're achieving and how you bring people together is really heartwarming. Thank you for inviting me here and allowing me to be part of this very precious group. And thank you to all the participants who've collaborated and participated so beautifully. It's made this webinar a wonderful experience. Thank you.
Thank you. We are really, really honored and pleased for having you here with us tonight. Thank you so much.
Honor is mine. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.